Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Interact podcast. My name is Josh Hanum, co-founder and CEO at Interact. Today, I'm joined by Suzy Vadori, author, book coach, editor, has a great quiz specifically for the book coaching business that I wanted to chat with you about. So thanks for being here, and let's jump right into it. Tell us about your quiz.
Oh, thanks so much for having me today, Josh. It was fun to get the recognition because yeah, I love to brag about this quiz. It is such a huge part of my business. I started, I am an author, and I was making a full time living. I left my job as an executive for 20 years. I was an operations professional, a chief operating officer at different companies, and went in all in on this writing stuff full time. And prior to 2020, I was actually making a living speaking as an author. And so touring and speaking and doing all these things, teaching. And then when 2020 hit and the pandemic, it all kind of went away. And I had to lean into, I'm like, okay, well, there was no events to go to and nowhere to speak and all those things. And so nowhere to sell my books. And so I was doing this other little thing, editing and book coaching on the side, and I went all in on that. And so I went out and got my certification to become a book coach. And in the fall of 2020, or December of 2020, I was certified as an author accelerator book coach. And I needed to get the word out. And so the Interact quiz was actually a huge piece of how I was quickly able to grow my mailing list. And so I don't know what specific questions you want, but really that was how I did it, because I wanted to talk to writers and I wanted to get a fun way for writers to come and start having this conversation with me. And the quiz was how I did it.
That's super cool. Yeah, maybe we could start with like what kind of impact it's had, and then work backwards from there in terms of building up that email list and engaging authors. Like, what have the business benefits been, just to make it really concrete to start off
Yeah,
with?
absolutely. I think the biggest thing, and this has changed a lot in the last 5 years for those who are listening who know anything about the writing industry. Book coaching was a really new profession in 2020. And so I found myself having to sort of explain what that was versus editing, which is kind of at the end of the road. You've written a draft. Now I'm giving feedback on the whole thing. Book coaching, you can join anytime. It's like having a tutor on how to write all the way along, or a personal trainer that's kind of working with you every step of the way. And so it was a bit of an uphill battle because people didn't understand this job. And so one of the things that I realized really quickly was that there was an education piece to it, and that I had to figure out what were people actually looking for, because they weren't looking for a book coach. Nowadays they do. They'll come to me and say, "Hey, I found you on ChatGPT when I typed in best book coach." And I'm like, "Thanks, ChatGPT," right? But it's different. And then they weren't typing in, "I need a book coach." They were saying, "I need help with my book," or "I want to publish my book because I think it's ready." And so for me, I was trying to find a way to have that conversation, because many writers, especially new writers, we write a first draft of a book. I did it myself. This is how I know. 15 years ago, I wrote a first draft of my novel and I thought it was ready. And then people said, "It's not ready yet, but keep going, keep at it. You can do this." And I was like, "Well, I don't know what to do." Like, "What do you mean it's not ready? What part of it isn't ready?" But it was a bit of a rude awakening. And I think, for people to realize that they should seek help or can seek help, they need to know whether or not their book is ready. That's what everybody wants to know. They ask me all the time, "Is my book ready for readers? Is it ready to publish?" That's what people want to know. Or is it good enough? And so I literally started with the question, is my book good enough for readers? And that is the title of the quiz. Is my book good enough for readers? Now, I mean, I get trolled on that and they say, "Well, good enough is in the eye of the beholder." And, people want to argue with me. But the truth is most writers want to know, is my book good enough? This is their language, not mine. I mean, there's a lot of things there. The truth is that there's real and tangible skills that you need to learn to make your book ready for readers. But we just think it's like Hollywood. Hollywood has this version of it where somebody has a great idea and rents a cabin in the woods and goes off and writes this brilliant novel. And then the next scene they're, doing book tours and they bought a yacht. And that's not real. The quiz started with that. And when I realized, because I did have a mailing list for for readers for my books, and I had a following there. And I just sent out a couple of emails and said I wanted to start a mailing list for writers so that I could start having this conversation. And I sent out I had like 400 people on my mailing list. I wasn't very good at sending out anything ever. And so I said, hey, are there any writers on this list that want to learn about writing? And 130 people said yes. So I started with 130, and I decided to do this quiz because I knew that I had to bridge this gap for people who think that their books are ready, but really could benefit from getting them, getting some skills. And so I started with the question, is your book good enough? And I worked through. Your tutorials were great. I'm sure they're even better now than they were in 2020. But it was very easy to create that quiz. And then the most time that I spent was actually creating what they get at the end of the quiz. That was the biggest sort of time suck for me, if I will, was creating, because I wanted to make sure that at the end of the quiz, it's not just, hey, you're not ready, but hey, here's some materials, here's some free learning, here's some, like, I want it to be a win-win for everybody taking the quiz. And, if your book isn't ready, if that's what it says, then, or it isn't good enough yet, or whatever I'm telling you, then I give you some tangible skills. And so that was a lot of fun. But I spent about a week. I actually looked it up today, knowing that we were going to talk about it. I opened my account on December 17th. I remember that the quiz went live on December 24th. And the reason I know that is because it's December 24th, right? It's Christmas Eve. And I just was not going to think about this. It was driving me crazy. I put a lot into, especially making the materials. The quiz itself wasn't difficult to set up. But making the materials, I was like, I'm just going to let it go live. I know that not much is going to happen during Christmas and New Year's. And so I just want it to be live. And so I turned it on. And that isn't what happened. In fact, what happened was the opposite. And, I don't want to make promises because I'm sure it doesn't happen to everybody. But what happened was the opposite. And I started getting people, because the end of the quiz, you join my mailing list. And at the end, between Christmas and New Year's in 2020, I was getting, I don't know, like 25, 30 people every single day joining my mailing list. And I was like, what is happening? Right. And I'm spending time with my family, and I was like, all right, I tried tons of lead magnets before, Josh. This is not like, it's not like this was the first thing I tried. I tried lots of lead magnets that I thought were going to be amazing. Things that I thought that people wanted, but no, they wanted to take a quiz.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was.
I think that it's not surprising to me for one reason, because it was the question that people wanted to know from you, and you knew that.
Yeah.
I always tell people, if you know the question that people have for you and you turn that into a quiz, it's gonna work. The people that come in and they're like, oh, how do I make a good quiz, when they have no context on like what does their audience want to know, I don't really have good help for that situation. You kind of first need to know what is the issue that they're facing, and you painted a great picture of it, where it's like everybody kind of has this rosy picture. You go in a cabin, you write a book, you think it's going to work. That's not anybody's actual scenario. They hit a wall, their book's not ready, and the question that they have is like, when is it going to be ready? And then you made a quiz like, is it ready? And then it resonated with people. So that doesn't surprise me at all, only because you knew that question first, and that came from, I mean, what, years of being an author yourself?
A decade. Yeah, a decade of and working with people. I had been book coaching before that as well. I really started in 2018 when I left my job as a chief operating officer at a company to go do things writing. I was doing it sort of on the side, but I hadn't had to fill my ranks because I was doing other things as well. And then when everything else disappeared in 2020, I had to find a way quickly to open that dialogue and to find new ways of helping writers that wasn't in person, because that was really my bailiwick. And, now even just in 2025, when we're recording this, it's just starting to come back, these in-person opportunities. But a lot of what I do is now online, which is awesome.
So cool.
So I grew it from 130 people. I don't remember exactly, but it was very quick that I got to about 2,000 on my mailing list. And if you would imagine, the way that I was doing that was through running Facebook ads. And so I was running some really basic Facebook ads to this quiz. That's what I was doing. And so that was also why it took me sort of a week. Otherwise, I think the quiz itself didn't take that long to set up, but the week was like learning Facebook ads. I'd never done that before. and figuring out what was going to work. And funny thing, actually, between Christmas and New Year's, depending on what you're doing, if you're selling things that people might buy as a Christmas present, probably not a good time to be actually, right? But what
Yeah.
happened was I saw the pricing, because Facebook ad pricing changes. And what I saw was the Facebook ad pricing like plummeted during that
Mm,
week. So it was really cheap.
mm.
And I was getting leads for like 10 cents, right? Because I still have, I just checked it. Even today, I still have that same quiz is still running. And I've tweaked it. I updated some of the graphics in 2022 just to make it look more like my brand. But yeah, it's still running. And I get about 20, like it's not everybody that finishes the quiz that clicks on it, right? I get about 20% through. So I can do the math. I've consistently over 5 years had 20-cent leads from Facebook ads. And I don't do that many Facebook ads anymore. I don't need them because the quiz is in lots of other places. But I looked, I still got about 100 leads, like 100 new people subscribing to my email list this month
Wow.
from that quiz that I put out in 2020. I do
Wow.
run I think I'm running like $3 a day or something on Facebook ads just to keep that campaign alive. But I'm not doing anything specific.
Wow. That's very cool. And I think it just points to how dialed in the quiz is, because something that can last 5+ years has to
I'm not
be
turning it off.
connected.
It still
Yeah,
works.
it has to be connected to like what the audience actually cares about, like what they
Yeah.
actually care to know from you and care to learn from your expertise. And I think it's a really great example of taking everything that you've learned, turning it into a quiz that can live on for a long time and also automate conversations that, I would imagine it would be very time consuming if you had to talk to 100 people every month and like answer the same basic set of questions and then give them a readout on whether or not their book was ready to publish. Like it would be too much time to do yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, not everybody stays in the community. They check it out and they decide if it's for them. But over the years, so yeah, I mean, over the next few years, very quickly, I grew to about 13,000 on my list. And now, like I said, I mean, I kind of still have it running, but I'm not running any aggressive campaigns or trying to grow my list. So it's kind of stayed there. But that's right, and people stay on my list for years and years and years. I actually just had somebody come and join a program this fall that I know she joined my list. Oh, she was one of those first 130 people to join my list. And she's never bought anything from me, and that's totally fine. And then this fall, she came and joined a group program, and then she also hired me one on one to do some editing. So I was like, wow, like 5 years you've been on my mailing list. Now, that's the other piece to it is, what are you going to do if you hit this quiz and you get this great lead magnet? You got to follow up, right? I have sent since 2020, since that spring when I started that, or I guess January, it probably was when I started saying, okay, I got to do this. I have sent religiously and emails out. And I think when I first started, I was trying to get 3 out of 4 weeks in a month. And then I was able to staff up my team and other things. And now I have support. I have not missed an email every single Thursday in 4 years. And that
That's
matters.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's so important. Like, what metrics or I don't know, anecdotal do you have? Because I tell people that all the time, and I think it just doesn't quite land. But like, is there is there more to the story in terms of concrete evidence that you have that it matters?
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you, I mean, as a book coach, and I have many, many colleagues who are, growing their businesses. And I love helping people with businesses, by the way. And before we started recording, I was talking to Josh about his business because I come from that world of building businesses. I worked in tech startups and manufacturing startups. And so I'm fascinated by business, which is very unusual in the publishing space, by the way. It's very unusual to have that background. But yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would say to writers, to authors, to anybody trying to build a business that's listening is you can't do everything, right? So if you're looking at quizzes and you're like, okay, it's the next whiz bang thing, and I want to add that to my already 40 things or whatever, it probably won't work. You got to find one thing that you can go all in on, right? That you're going to spend a little bit of testing money or whatever, running ads to it or trying it out. You got to push people through it to see how it works. And I think I did tweak it a little bit, but not very much, because it did work. And if you pick one thing and you're consistent, that means I don't have to do other things. You rarely find me on social media. You rarely find me. I mean, there's posts up there, but they're not, my team shares things like, we're going to share this interview when it comes up for sure. But it's not my, my focus. What I do is I focus on growing that mailing list, and I focus on delivering value to the writers that come to that mailing list. Right. And so, then they stay. There's no point in driving people to something and then not doing it. And people will say to me, other than your mailing list, Suzy, like, I'm trying to grow my business. Other than your mailing list, what's the one thing you could say? I'm like, no, it's the mailing list. Because that's the one thing that I show up and do consistently. I feed people into the mailing list, and then I show up for them over and over and over, delivering value, offering my services, all of those things. And then eventually when they're ready, they buy. And then I'm happy to work with them.
Yeah, I think that's the key to running a business successfully in 2025. And I mean, it's been that way. Like, that mailing list is such a prime asset. It's like something that you own. It's not going to change. The only thing that would change it is if you don't stay consistent, or you don't send out emails that actually help people. Then you might have lower opens, or your reputation gets messed up, or whatever. But as long as you continue to feed it and to work on it and to show up and deliver value every week like you're doing, I don't see how you can go wrong. And it's so interesting that, I think we see the same thing, because our whole thing is helping people to grow their email lists. But then it's like, then they want to know, like, oh, what do I do next? And it's like, well, what you do next is what you're talking about. Just like continue delivering value to the email list. That's how you do it. Everybody wants to know, like, what's the next like hack?
Yeah, and I change my offerings every now and again to suit where I'm at in life and what it is that I want to do. And I did a lot of courses in 2020, and I was driving big launches, all those things, and I don't do that anymore because I don't like it. It's really hard, like those really and like a lot has changed. I won't get into all the details of all the different softwares because that's not what the podcast is about, but so much has changed, and it continues to change. And a lot of it doesn't really favor like the ads that I run and things. It doesn't favor those short launches anymore, because if something happens, I can't fix it, right? Like, it's too short a time frame. And so I found that very crazy and stressful. I'm the reason that the quiz is still running is because it can sort of run, and I always ran it in between launches, and it would continue to just quietly grow my list, which is perfect, because then even when I was launching, then I would have fresh eyes when it came time to launch that hadn't seen this promotion before. So yeah, I mean, I've changed a lot about now. I'm doing more group programs and more one-on-one and all the things. So yeah, it's changed.
Yeah,
So go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I like that adaptability. It's like, it's not always one size fits all, like you have to.
Well, I think if you run an online business, you have to be adaptable, because this is not the same climate that it was when I started. It's not the same climate even a year ago. But I gotta say, and I'm going to sound like an infomercial for your quizzes, but I haven't changed the quiz. There's been nothing. And I know that it's there. And if it becomes my priority again to ramp up the list for whatever reason, I can just start driving more traffic to that quiz, and I know exactly what it's going to do. Can I share some stats with you, Josh?
That would be incredible.
Because I think they're crazy, right? Yeah. And I mentioned I was an operations professional, so I love the statistics.
Oh yeah, this is fun. Let's do it.
Yeah, this is the fun stuff. So that first quiz ran for almost 2 years. I ran 17,000 people through that quiz. 17,000 people. Only 25% ended up on my list. That's fine. I thought that was pretty good.
That's pretty good.
But from September 22, when I did the graphics refresh, until now, I looked it up. This one shocked me. 51,000 people. And I'm running nothing. I'm not even running, I'm not running nothing. I am still running Facebook ads too, but not much. Like a few $100s a month is not a lot in my business. And 51,000 people have taken that quiz.
Wow.
I just think that's incredible.
That
Those
is
are
really
numbers that I
incredible.
couldn't have even fathomed when I started this business. That was not on my radar with 130 people on my list. It was a big risk. It was a lot of, a lot of effort and attention to it at the time. And yeah, I'm really grateful that it worked as well as it did.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I mean, I think it's a mixing of things. Like the tool is there, yeah, but then you had all of your experience and packaged that up into a quiz that was helpful for the audience. So the dots kind of all connect, but those are really incredible numbers. I mean, to go from
Who
130
knew
people on the
there
list.
were that many writers out there wondering if their writing was good enough, right?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I just think, as you said, it is about knowing your audience. Like, I don't think I have colleagues who've tried and haven't had the same results,
Mm.
or have had good results. But I mean, mine have been crazy good, and so we don't always want to just highlight the abnormal ones. But the thing is that if you do know your audience and you're providing value, I'm not trying to trick anybody into getting their email address. I'm actually giving them something that they need, right? And that's, I talk about sales all the time. And actually, I'm going to a conference tomorrow, literally to talk about how to make money and not feel icky about it, because we're not trying to coerce anybody, and we're not trying to trick anybody into being on our list. We want people there that actually need what you're talking about. And so, like, make it fun, make it, I mean, it's called interact, make it fun and interactive, and give them something, and make it a place where they're like, wow, that was really cool. I'm glad I did that, because now I see this whole community that I have access to.
I'm glad you
Valuable
brought that up.
information.
I'm glad you brought that up because finding a way to make it not feel icky, to feel mutual, and a quiz is a great way to do that because you do have to give them something. You have to give them some information that's helpful to them. You have to think about how to give them that information, what questions you should ask them. And so there's a lot of giving on the side of the business prior to asking for the email from the quiz taker in return. And so it's a mutual exchange at its best. And when it does work, everybody walks away feeling good about the interaction. And I like that you brought that up because it's a huge thing, and it helps to feel like what you're doing with your business is connecting with people and it is adding value. And I think that's super super important.
Yeah, and not everybody appreciates it, by the way. So I said there's
No.
trolls. I mean, if you're doing something public like running ads, you're going to get trolls. And I learned really early on, you just hide their comment and move on, because I'm providing information and maybe they want to talk back. But if they actually took the quiz and saw what I was delivering for free, I mean, there's actually really good information in there. It's not something for everybody. It's kind of designed for people who don't have access to that information. Because when I started out as a writer, I found it really hard to find basic information. So things that are really second nature to me now, and this is the beauty of whatever you're designing or whatever your business is about online, you probably know a lot about whatever you're teaching. And we think, oh, we have to do something unique or different. No, you don't. You just have to share what you know, because you have lived and breathed this for a decade or for your 10,000 hours or whatever to become an expert in it. Share it, because somebody else doesn't know that information. And that's what builds that trust between you and, I mean, people know if they answer my emails and ask me a question, I will answer it. Sometimes it takes a long time. I'm not going to read your book. If you send me your book, I'm not going to read your book and tell you what I think of it. That's a paid service, obviously, because it takes me a long time. But if you just have a quick question, like, I will always answer that.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. I mean, I
Right?
think that's the perfect place to leave people in this conversation, is to share that expertise, because it is something that it's a valuable asset, and I think we lose sight of that. And like, I think you put that really well, and I want hopefully people listening will kind of take that to heart, not just with their quiz, but throughout the rest of their business. So that's a perfect spot for, I think, landing the plane here, where can people go to take the quiz, and also see your work across the board? Because I think it is super cool that you're still, you have your author side, you have your coaching side, your editing side. Like, where can they go check out all those things?
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest place is suzyvadori.com. And if you want to check out the quiz, it's suzyvadori.com/quiz.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Suzy. This was awesome. I feel like this is a perfect business coaching session for all the listeners, and super
Hey,
valuable.
I've been through the ringer, and I'm always here for it. I love helping other people figure this out. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it.